had a problem with this Cushman Easy Go golf cart. There's definitely something going on here in the motor, and it looks like the input shaft and the motor coupler aren't connecting very well. You can see how loose it is when I shake this connection around. So clearly it's not good. This is what a brand new input shaft looks like on a brand new motor, and this is how it should wiggle. I'm going to walk you through how I replaced this input shaft, this motor. I'm going to tell you about a problem that I had with an input shaft that came in, and then in the end I'm going to show you another problem that I had to solve to keep this thing from rattling. We're going to start first by turning the power off, and we're going to label all of the wires that come in on the motor so that when I disassemble the motor and take those wires off, I know exactly where the wires need to go back. Now, if you're planning on using the motor again, or maybe replacing the motor coupler, you will probably want to use a second wrench to loosen all of those post nuts on the motor, or you could end up stripping out the wires on the inside of it if there's too much tension. So make sure you're careful with that. After removing all the wires off the top of the posts and disconnecting the speed controller on the back, there's 3 bolts on this. I've done this before. I can link to another video where I've replaced a motor in an E-Z-GO golf cart. Not a big deal, but there are 3 bolts that bolt into the back of the motor. You'll want to loosen and take out the 2 side bolts first, and then loosen the top. And as you loosen the top, depending on how loose the input shaft and motor are, your motor may or may not just slide right off and start falling if you're not holding it. But it's a pretty easy process to do. Once you get those bolts out and once you get that top loosened a little bit out, you should be able to just slide that motor right on off and take it out. Now, as part of this input shaft replacement, I was able to talk to the super nice folks up at D&D Motors in Syracuse, New York, and had them send me a high torque motor. I purchased this from them a couple weeks prior to the install, and they were able to send it down, packaged it really well. Now, this thing is fairly heavy. It's well over 50 pounds, but they pack it really well in this box with cardboard and tape everything up so that when it comes down, the motor itself won't be damaged. The cardboard in there protects the spline and the motor coupler on the front of it, as well as all of the posts that are on the side of the motor. You don't want those to get bent or damaged. Those are connected to wires on the inside. And any twisting or turning on that could potentially disconnect them from the inside, where you'd have to separate the motor housing and have that repaired by a professional before you're able to get that back together again. This motor is the exact same motor that I put in my other golf cart. The main reason I did this is I didn't feel like separating the motor coupler from the old motor, and this was just a pretty easy upgrade to do. It does come with the speed controller wires on the back of it. You'll have to wire and solder in the speed controller back onto this. I'll cover that later in the video, but for now, this is what a D&D high torque motor looks like. This is the 17502-0001, and this is what they look like side by side. The old motor's in the back, the black one, and you can see how much shorter it is than the new motor. These two are lined up identical on the front, and you can see how much further the high torque motor sticks out of the back. This is with the speed control wires coming out of it, and you can see the size comparison there, as well as what new posts look like on a new motor. But for now, we're going to get started on the input shaft. And if you look, I'm removing this plastic ring that covers the ball bearings. That was a pretty easy lift to just pull out with a screwdriver, and then after that, I've got to get this snap ring out that's inside holding the input shaft down. You'll need some snap ring pliers to compress it and get it to a position where you can start to work it out of the input shaft. I am sure that there are much better mechanics out there that have much better snap ring pliers than I do. Once you do that, you can take your channel locks or favorite tool of choice to grab the spline that goes into the motor input and just pull it out. It should slide right out. It's got 1 gear to jump over on the inside. There's a set of ball bearings on the other side that's got to jump over that gear. Once you get it over that gear, you can actually pull the entire input shaft out. My biggest problem is I ordered this off of Amazon, and Amazon sent me the wrong input shaft. You can see here with the calipers, the one that is in the golf cart that I just pulled out is way bigger than the one that Amazon sent me. So obviously I couldn't use this one. I have to send this one back, and I ordered the other one. That's why you see 3 sitting there. We're going to take the speed control wire, we're going to strip off the outer sheath of it, and we're going to solder the speed controller onto the new D&D motor. I like to solder all my connections. I like to use heat shrink on all of my connections to make sure that they're good and water resistant after I'm done. So I'm going to slip 3 tubes of heat shrink around each one of these speed control wires that are coming out of this D&D motor. You'll notice that the coloring seems different, and it is. The red will go to the red in the speed controller wire, the black will go to the black in the speed controller wire, and the white will go to the green on the D&D motor if you're using the same speed controller. This is a pretty easy process. These motors don't come with the speed controller because they're made for different kinds of golf carts with different kinds of speed controllers on them. In my case, I just wanted to reuse the old speed controller. There was nothing wrong with it. So we're using that. We've soldered all the connections, and we're going to take the heat shrink and cover up each one of those soldered connections that we've made on the wires. And then we're going to take in this case, I use my soldering iron because it's a butane soldering iron. You can pick one of those up off of Amazon as well. I picked up the heat shrink off of Amazon, and you can take that butane torch, that same one, and use it to shrink the heat shrink down once you're done making those soldered connections. And when I'm done making a soldered connection like this that might be exposed to some elements in the back, I typically like to wrap them in a split loom. I ordered this off of Amazon. It was super cheap. I think like 10 or 15 bucks for 20 feet of it. I only needed a couple feet. But this will do a great job in protecting this as it sits out exposed underneath the bed of this Cushman E-Z-GO TXT golf cart. Next, I'm going to take a little bit of high temp grease that I've used before. I'm going to clean out the input so that I can put a new seal around. This new seal came with the input shaft. And I'm going to take the input shaft. I put a little bit of grease on the seal to make sure that it sits tightly and seals nicely. When I put it in there, you can see that it has a little groove that it fits into. You want to make sure that you push it all the way into that groove. I'm going to jump over that top gear that's in the Dana transmission here and go ahead and put this input shaft in. You can use some gentle persuasion. You're probably not going to be able to do it with your hand, but this is a dead blow hammer that I'm using, and it'll knock it all the way to the end. It will stop when it's pushed all the way. Next, you want to get your snap ring pliers out and put in the brand new snap ring that they give you with the input shaft back into place. Once again, there's a little groove that this sits into as well. You're going to push that all the way in until it snaps into the position that is set inside. I used a little bit of high temp grease to put on this ball bearing cover or this input shaft cover, and then it just kind of slides in pretty tight with just the splines portion sticking out of the transmission. And then you're going to take that brand new D&D motor. This is the high torque motor again, and put it, I think they're a 19 spline motor. You're going to set it on the splines. It will sit there once you get it onto the input shaft. And then you're going to take your 3 bolts and put those back in. I don't think it makes any difference what order you put these in. There's only 3 of them. Even though there's 4 bolt holes in the motor, I've always wondered why that exists that way, but perhaps there's other applications for motors that maybe use all 4 bolts. But in these cases, if there was a 4th bolt, you couldn't get to it because the transmission itself would be blocking your access since it's right in the way. So you get those 3 bolts in, you get them all tightened down. Make sure you don't over tighten them. If you did and you happen to snap the head of that bolt off, you would have a really difficult time trying to get those back out. And I don't ever want to be in that position. So you just snug those up pretty good, but not too tight so that you don't have any issues with them. Make sure you put that loop on the top where it goes. That is where the wire loom set runs through, so that those are nice and organized when they come back through. You're going to take all of your labels now, and you're going to appreciate having these labels on there. So I put the F1 and the F2 labels on, and you're going to run those down on the post. Now, the posts did come with nuts and washers on them. I took the top nuts and the top washers off so that I could slide in each one of these on top of the posts on the motor. Go ahead and put those nuts back on, and make sure your dog's barking in the background. That really helps. And then you're going to want to take an extra wrench and put that on the back nut, just below the connection that you're trying to make. If you do not do this, let me stress that you can break these posts off. They will break. They're not unbreakable. So if you don't have the right size wrench, or if the nut's too thin, you know, in this case, You can use just about anything to make sure that the whole post isn't twisting as you're tightening it down. But go ahead and get those all tightened down and test it out. You want to have a flashlight in there that you can maybe knock over when you're trying to do that. And then I'm going to take this gigantic heavy bed and negotiate it back onto the top of the E-Z-GO Cushman TXT hauler, and then put the pins back in the back of it. We're gonna take it out for a test run. I'm excited to see what this motor does, and I really want to see how well this fix is after replacing the input shaft and the motor. I'm starting to hear some noise already, and it's already starting to concern me because I just fixed all the back parts of this, and something, you can hear it, something doesn't sound right. And just wait until I get a little bit faster here and you can really hear the, yeah, that is concerning. And I thought, what in the world is wrong now? I am trying to feel it, trying to see if all the connections are solid. Where is this noise coming from? I replaced everything back there. Why is it making these kind of noises? Well, as it turns out, I suspected maybe something was wrong with the wheels themselves, because that's the last thing that could be rattling on here. And I went and got a jack, and I jacked the thing up in the back. And lo and behold, as I started looking at the nuts that were holding the wheels down, there were nuts missing. That can be a problem. But there were nuts that were just completely loose. Like, I could hand unscrew these without any kind of wrench or anything. I mean, they would just come right off. So that told me all I needed to know. I went to Amazon and ordered this set of replacement wheel lug nuts for this because I wanted some nice matching black wheel lug nuts for this. As you can see right there, there's a post that doesn't even have one on it. So I jacked up the front, I jacked up the back, and I went around and replaced all 4 lug nuts on each wheel with brand new black ones that match, and took it back out for another test spin, and everything was working exactly as I expected. For those of you wondering, this is the same cart that I put a new Akmo lithium battery in. This is a 100 amp hour battery, 48 volt conversion that I did because the batteries had run down. They had depleted their water levels and weren't refilled, which made the batteries somewhat unrecoverable, and he was looking for a lithium upgrade anyway, something with no maintenance, and lithium is definitely the way to go for that. But as I embarked out on this test ride, I was driving through the neighborhood and am reminded that without a controller upgrade, this still has the factory Curtis controller in it, without a controller upgrade and a brand new motor and a brand new battery, you're not going to get additional speed. Where this golf cart is going is not a neighborhood that would require any additional speed. This is more of a workhorse type vehicle that's being used to, do work around the yard, do some kiteboarding and other things across the street. So it goes back and forth across the street. It doesn't travel longer distances, and the max miles per hour on this motor is roughly 15 to 16 miles per hour with this battery topped out at 58 volts ish. I think they run somewhere in that range of 52 to 58 volts. So it does get a little bit faster than what you would get off of lead acid batteries with the factory Curtis controller. But if you're really looking for a speed increase, you could do one of a couple of things. You can put bigger tires on it. These are the pretty standard sized tires that come on it now with the new lug nuts that I put on it. But the standard factory size tires, if you jump up to, a lift kit and put a 23-inch tire or something to that effect on it, you're obviously going to get a lot more speed out of it, because a higher torque motor is going to be capable of turning those wheels faster. The wheels are going to be turning at the same speed, but the outer diameter of the wheel is going to cause the cart to go faster than it would on a smaller wheel. And you can pretty easily get a controller upgrade in all tracks, or a Navitas controller that would be pretty easy to slip in there and get some additional speed out of that, make your motor turn a little bit faster. But as I stated, this is a D&D motor. It's their high torque version of motor. It's not one that's made for speed. This thing would absolutely climb a tree with the amount of torque that is in that motor now. But my biggest concern after replacing the input shaft and replacing the motor on it was making sure that I didn't have that rattle. The connection between the input shaft and the motor coupler is now solid and tight. Everything's redone. Everything's good in the Dana back end that's on there. And now with the wheel nuts, wheel lug nuts tightened down as tight as possible, there's no wheel rattle on this cart. This cart is all set for hopefully years and years of use without any more concern. The factory controller shouldn't have any problems handling any of this, and the tires should be just fine. I think they're pretty close to brand new tires on it. So I'm running through my test. I'm maxing out around 16 miles an hour as I watch the speed on my phone. There is no speedometer on the golf cart, but I'm running through the test, and everything's honestly looking good. So I'm pretty happy with this upgrade. Let me know if you have questions. I've got a ton more golf cart videos coming out. I've got some more battery swaps. I'm going to be doing a Yamaha one in the future. And I really appreciate you guys following along this journey with me. I have a ton of fun doing these types of things. I actually put some flashing lights on this golf cart so that it would be useful as it is on a pretty busy 2-lane road, and they're kind of this sort of white and amber construction lights that you can put on vehicles that hopefully people will see and use caution and slow down for. So I did that project and got another upgrade and a few more things coming along, as well as potentially a 48 volt to 72 volt upgrade conversion with a battery on my golf cart. And yeah, thanks for watching. Really appreciate you guys, and I'll catch you on the next one.